SS Rajamouli. The name needs no introduction. And with me today is the man who's brought his story to the fore. I'm talking about Raghav Khanna, who's with me today on NDTV, here to discuss a documentary which is streaming on Netflix called Modern Masters SS Rajamouli. Raghav, I want to begin by asking you, why this name, Modern Masters?
Thank you for having me here, Vishali. The original idea came from Film Companion, and so did the name. But my interpretation of the name was, when we think of cinematic masters, intuitively we think of directors or artists from the past. We think of Yash Chopra Saab, we think of Raj Kapoor Saab, Satyajit Ray, or internationally also Kurosawa and other directors.
Yeah.
But here there was an opportunity to celebrate the masters who live and breathe among us, who are at the top of their craft and who are continuously working even now. So this was more of a look at contemporary masters, that's why modern masters, rather than just masters from the past.
Raghav, the documentary is produced by Anupama Chopra. How did that collaboration come together?
Like I mentioned, the original idea for the documentary came from Film Companion, and they partnered with Applause, and then they reached out to me to direct this. And when they explained the concept to me and they mentioned that the first one is on Rajamouli sir, I just thought it as the right thing to do at that point in time, because personally what intrigued me about Rajamouli sir was that he changed the face of modern cinema in India. With Bahubali, he broke all barriers, regional barriers, created this idea of pan-India cinema, and that his growth and his rise didn't stop there. With RRR, he's gone and conquered global frontiers, and I only hope that with his next film, he's expanding further on this success.
But Raghav, this documentary on SS Rajamouli, it's a mammoth task. I mean, I want to know as a director, what are the kind of stresses and pressures involved? I mean, what was the pressure on you when you got to make this?
It's a good question, and to be honest, you're directing one of the biggest directors in the country and one of the biggest directors in the world. That in itself could be daunting. So my first 2 days, I'm like, okay, you have to calm your nerves. A part of me always found comfort in the fact that I'm dealing with a master, so he will understand. And thankfully so, Rajamouli sir never questioned me for what I was doing. And he placed that trust in the entire team that we are portraying him correctly, we are bringing out his story in the right manner. But yes, it's much easier to direct somebody who's not from the film industry, especially somebody who's not a director, rather than directing one of the biggest directors in the world.
Now, Raghav, there's this interesting, I've seen the documentary and I have to compliment you. It's very engaging, it's interesting. There's this analogy that Anupama Chopra draws in it, where she compares filmmaking to making an upma. The right ingredients, the right amount of cashews. How much do you relate to that analogy as a director when it comes to filmmaking?
Well, this analogy is coined by Rajamouli sir's family, his father and him. And I think it aptly applies to most commercial cinema, where upma itself is your story, the plot line, the major chunk, and the beats, the high points, they are the cashews, they are the peanuts. And like Rajamouli sir said, that upma alone can be bland, cashews alone you can't have too much of them. I think this beautiful analogy is the groundwork of storytelling at large. You need to have a canvas, you need to have a sheet anchor, but at the same time you have to create those dramatic and cinematic highs and lows.
But Raghav, I noticed in the documentary that this is a man who's achieved so much success. He's humble, he's down to earth, he's grounded. I mean, I could just sense it by watching the documentary. What is he like as a person when you interacted with him?
Bit for bit, whatever you see in the documentary.
Yeah.
Extremely humble, a thorough gentleman, but relentlessly passionate about his craft. That humility is inspirational because he's achieved so much. He's conquered new frontiers with regards to taking Indian cinema internationally. But he wears his success so casually, with so much humility.
Now, Raghav, you talk about Magadhira, so I remember in the documentary, his father says that Rajamouli is an atheist. He doesn't believe in God, and he was in the middle of an accident during the shooting of Magadhira, and he was doing what he was supposed to do. He wasn't praying. He says, cinema is my God. How much of that did you feel while filming this documentary?
See, like I mentioned, he's relentless about his craft. He's relentless about his stories. He said the only thing he's a slave to is to his stories. And that is very true about himself. His stories are utmost important to him. And I think for any artist for that matter, if you're truly immersed in your art, if you're truly committed to your story, very few things will take precedence over there, because when you're in that act of creation, when you're in that act of making films or any art for that matter, you are pretty much focused on that with horse pads on.
But Raghav, he's a director himself. Now, I want to know that when you were filming him, did he give you a complete freeway, or was he also co-directing or giving his suggestions while filming the documentary?
Any suggestions that would have come from him would have been gold dust.
Yeah.
Because here you have somebody who's at the top of their craft, and it would have been great learning experience. But I felt extremely honored by the fact that he trusted me and the entire team, and he just allowed us that space to make this documentary. And like I said, that even if he came up with suggestions, they would have only been learnings for all of us.
And Raghav, there's a beautiful love story that not many people know about S.S. Rajamouli, how he persuaded his wife to marry him. And there's a beautiful love story there. So I'm glad that came out in this documentary. Tell us about that and your interactions with his wife.
Overall, when you're making a documentary, as a filmmaker, one of the first tasks you have is you have to make your subject extremely comfortable with you.
Yeah.
Like in an interview, you have to forget the fact that cameras are around.
Yeah.
It is verite in nature the way we film. It is candid and it is factual. A lot of it is access driven. So we spent a good amount of time not only with Rajamouli sir, but also with the family. Off camera, on camera, phone calls, research. A lot of it was driven by Anupama Chopra herself. And when we found that access and comfort, we were able to talk of personal subjects in a much more comfortable manner.
Now, Raghav, we're talking about the family. This is a family of 20 people who I think lives together, and they're all involved in the process of filmmaking in different roles. So he feels, he seems like a person who has very close ties with his friends and family. What did you notice there when you interacted with him and his ties and relationships with his family members?
That is so unique, because in my recollection, there is no other filmmaker who operates like that.
Yeah.
Where not one but two, but almost the entire family is working on your film. And it's not like they are all actors or they are ADs. They are musicians, they are executive producers, line producers, costume designers. It's almost like all the departments have an element of his family.
But Raghav, tell me about, how do you decide, this man has so much that you can put into a documentary. How do you decide this is what you're going to take, this is what you're going to omit? Now tell me, what have you omitted from the documentary that you wanted to take in it? Like, just give us an example of something.
See, essentially, what you see on screen is a distillation of everything we've shot. Prior to filming this documentary, and even during the first stage of filming this documentary, a great amount of research and writing happened, where a structure and a treatment was arrived on paper. Detailed research happened on each of the subjects, on Rajamouli sir's body of work, to highlight what stands out, what distinguishes his work, what are the common characteristics that you can attribute to an author of cinema. And in this regard, my co-director Tanvi, Anupama Chopra, myself and an entire research team worked for months to collate that on paper, and that translated on screen.
Raghav, now the actors featured in the documentary, NTR Jr., he talks about the fact that Rajamouli is a great actor. He enacts his scenes. So tell us about that. What was your experience interacting with all the other actors that are featured in the documentary?
I think one common thing that I can arrive at after talking to all the actors is how passionate and committed Rajamouli sir is towards his craft, his filmmaking. he will leave no stone unturned to realize his vision. A part of it is being a great narrator and a great actor. We were not there filming his acting portions, we were not there filming him narrating these scripts. But as you can see from behind the scenes of multiple films that are a part of the documentary, you see how enthusiastically he's enacting those scenes. At sometimes you are hardly able to distinguish the actor from Rajamouli sir himself. Like if you cut those two scenes together, it's like, okay, just the clothes changed and the energy remains the same.
I want to talk to you about James Cameron and Joe Russo. What was your interaction with them in the documentary? What were they like?
See, James Cameron and SS Rajamouli talking about each other is a very exclusive club.
Yeah.
I am a lot of films and a lot of hard work away from talking about them. But definitely with Joe Russo, again, we had off-camera chats. What you realize is that he's a director, again, who redefined commercial cinema in many ways. Took stories that traveled the world, created box office records. But at the core of what you do as a director or as a storyteller remains the same. Somewhere your challenges remain the same. You will have to deal with the studio with a certain amount of tact in that relation. You have to safeguard your creative space. You have to find ways and means to overcome daily challenges to realize your creative vision.
But Raghav, tell me now, I'm imagining this scenario in the US. There's this room and there's Rajamouli in it, there's James Cameron in it, and there's Joe Russo. What do these men talk about? I mean, this is the best of the best in the filmmaking industry. What are these conversations like? Take us into one of those conversations. Give us details.
I'd like to quote Picasso here.
Ah.
Picasso once said, when critics meet, they talk about form. When artists meet, they talk about buying cheap turpentine oil. What it means is coming back to the same thing, that you'll find these great artists not talking about cinema and theme.
Yeah.
They'll probably be talking about the hurdles they mutually found and they encountered and overcame.
Yeah.
But like I said, that between all these great directors, there's immense mutual respect and admiration for each other's work.
Yeah.
Which is so heartening to know, because art is not meant to be competitive. It is not a sport. And somewhere, because I've dedicated a good part of my professional career to documentaries, you realize that only when the industry grows, when your peers grow, it only helps aid everyone's growth.
So thank you very much, Raghav. This was insightful. And I do hope to meet him in person someday. And I really do hope that our viewers also go out and watch that documentary, because it's quite interesting for all Rajamouli fans. Thank you so much for your time on NDTV today.
Thank you, Rasha.
Thank you.